is Stephanie Buono. I'm a graduate student at the University of Toronto, Boise, and I'm here today for our Motivation Monday interview series on qualitative methodologies with Dr. Alyssa Emery. Dr. Emery is an assistant professor at the School of Education at Iowa State University. Her research is focused on classroom motivation and how to best support students with disabilities in both general education and college. Her approach to addressing these research questions involves using mixed and multiple methodologies. Thank you very much, Dr. Emery, for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We'll get started with our first question. Since qualitative research is generally a broad term, can you talk a little bit about the types of approaches you have used in your research and provide us with any guidance on how to design these studies?
Sure. First, I think it's correct to say that qualitative inquiry is a broad term. Each particular methodology, including quantitative methodologies, is situated within what Jessica de Quercamby and Paul Schutz and others call an inquiry worldview. I tend to call this a philosophical stance. So when you use any methodology, you're making epistemological, ontological, and axiological claims about your research question. And many quantitative approaches tend to share philosophical stances, so it's sort of the water that we're swimming in, but they vary much more widely across qualitative approaches to inquiry. So for example, as you mentioned, I study the motivational experiences of underrepresented students, and in particular students with disabilities. And I want to know whether and to what extent our seminal theories of classroom motivation adequately describe their experiences. So in some of my research to date, I make the assumption that the experiences of these students do vary considerably from their typically developing peers. I don't think that there's a universal experience of perceived competence, for example. So using surveys that sort of aim to distill certain experiences down to a universal essence wouldn't be appropriate for that kind of research, but phenomenological approaches would be more appropriate. So the first step, and the one that I think it's easy to forget, is to locate the philosophical stance that's embedded in your research question, and then select an appropriate methodological approach.
Great, thank you for that very thoughtful answer. Next, we'll move on to our next question. What qualitative methods do you see as being particularly well suited for motivation research? And what are some understudied areas of research that could benefit from the use of qualitative designs?
I think there's room for many approaches to qualitative inquiry because the research question drives what method that we should use. And what I would suggest that researchers keep in mind is that old adage, if your only tool is a hammer, everything begins to look like a nail. When we get really comfortable with a single research methodology, we limit our ability to explore and to analyze our research questions, and we actually limit our interpretation of results too. So in terms of understudied areas of research, right now, I think we're in a really exciting time to revisit some of our major theories because classrooms are so different than they were when many of these theories were initially developed. We've got technology integrated in the classroom. We've got a host of standardized tests that students experience now. We have some really important conversations happening about content and curriculum. So I think it's a great time to harness the power of many different kinds of qualitative inquiry to look at ideas that we haven't really questioned in a long time. But I guess regardless of the methodology chosen, I think one way that we can do that is bringing to the center the experiences of people who haven't been well represented in our research to date.
Great, thank you. And how do you think we can communicate the potential advancements to the field that would be generated by qualitative inquiry in a field that generally tends to prioritize quantitative research?
Well, I think one thing for qualitative researchers to know is that we have many friends. So many of our field senior leaders are excited about the potential of qualitative inquiry. Personally, I think we have some work to do as a field to stop positioning qualitative work solely in relation to quantitative. And those are big conversations that will probably be ongoing for years. But my advice to researchers who are interested in participating in this conversation is to be really thoughtful about how you present your qualitative work. So when I'm reviewing, I appreciate researchers who provide a clear audit trail of their decision-making related to coding and interpretation. I like to see evidence that research teams looked for counter examples in their data and are really clear, like really outline exactly what they are bringing to the data that a different research team might not. And to that end, I think to the extent possible, I'd advise folks to seek out and cultivate research teams that have a wide variety of methodological expertise, but also personal experiences and backgrounds. I think the more diverse our research teams, the better our inquiry overall.
Wonderful. Yeah, I can definitely see the benefit in applying many of those methods. Thank you again so much for joining us today. This was Dr. Alyssa Emery. Thanks,
Thank you.
Alyssa.